Hey guys, this is Clinton Jeff from UnleashedPhones.com, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Nokia Lumia 830. Last month at IFA 2014, Nokia announced two new Windows phones. One was the selfie-obsessed Nokia Lumia 730, and one was what they're referring to as an affordable flagship phone, that is the Lumia 830 that I have in my hand right over here. The Lumia 830 is a sort of sequel to the Lumia 820 that debuted with Windows Phone 8. The 830 though has much more premium specs. It has a much more premium chassis as well, and most importantly it has a much more premium camera. Microsoft is pitching the Lumia 830 as a phone with a great camera that won't cost the price of your soul to buy. So here's what I think of it. Starting with design, the first thing you notice about the Lumia 830 when you lay your hands on it is how premium the thing feels. Build quality is really solid, and I kind of feel like this is the most solid Lumia phone I've used so far. It's even more well put together than the Lumia 925 from last year. Measuring 139 by 70.7 by 8.5 millimeters and weighing in at 150 grams, the Lumia 830 is comfortable enough to use one-handed, though you might not be able to reach all corners of that 5-inch screen with your thumb. The gentle slope of the back panel definitely does help in making it more comfortable to use and to hold. Most of that solid feeling though is because of the metal frame around the Lumia 830. In fact, the Lumia 830 looks a lot like the flagship Nokia Lumia 930. They both have the same squared edges and metal frame all around. The metal frame and smooth rounded metal edges means that the phone looks and feels very premium, but is a little bit heavy at 150 grams. As you can tell, I got the black version to review, which is kind of the most formal, most serious looking of all the other colors available, but it has this nice dark grey metal frame to it. The other colors you can get the Lumia 830 in is a shade of really bright orange, a shade of very bright green, and a normal white color, all of which have a silver metal frame instead of this awesome black. Personally, I wasn't too fond of the black color version, but now I kind of really like it because of how sleek it looks. At the front of the Lumia 830 you have that nice 5-inch 720p resolution screen. It's an IPS LCD display made out of Gorilla Glass 3, and the affordable price tag means that Microsoft had to go with a lower resolution screen instead of full HD. But 720p on a 5-inch screen is still a decent amount of 294 ppi pixel density. Still in the same price range there are phones like the Nexus 5 which have a 1080p display. The screen itself is quite vibrant and colors look very rich with that characteristic strong black contrast of Nokia's clear black display technology. Obviously it's not as crisp as a 1080p 5-inch display, but text and icons or other live tiles still look smooth and detailed enough. The display can also get really bright, so it is very comfortable to use outdoors even in direct sunlight. So it might not be the best screen in the entire world, but it definitely is a good screen. And being a Nokia Lumia phone, it also has support for super sensitive touch, so you can use the screen with gloves on. Above the display there's the centrally located earpiece with the 0.9 megapixel wide angle f2.4 front-facing camera. There's also an ambient light sensor and proximity sensor hidden somewhere around here. Below the display there's the usual Windows Phone buttons for back, start, and Bing search or Cortana depending on which region you're in. With the sides all wrapped in that metal frame, at the top you have the 3.5mm audio jack with the micro USB charging port right over here as well. There's nothing on the left side and there's nothing on the bottom, but there's a whole bunch of buttons on the right side. The buttons are in the same color as the metal frame, which looks really nice and clean. The buttons are for the dedicated camera key, which works really well and starts the camera up in just about a second or two, as you can see right over there. There's the power and screen lock button and the volume keys as well. The buttons are nice enough to use, but could have been less flush with the surface because I feel like they're really hard to find and use unless you're looking for them. Coming to the back, there's the camera module with the Nokia branding in the center and a speaker grill towards the bottom. The polycarbonate rear panel is also removable and is very easy to take off. You just plug it out right there. This gives you access to the removable battery, the micro SD card slot, the micro SIM card slot, and the camera module right over there. I should also add that the Lumia 830 supports wireless charging because of that rear panel. All in all, the Nokia Lumia 830 looks like a nice enough phone. It's very solid in terms of build quality. It's really hard to fault the design of this phone, and it really is incredibly solid. The only thing that really annoys me is the material used for the camera module. It kind of looks like it's glass. I don't know why Nokia didn't use the ceramic material that they used for the 1020 instead, which was almost scratchless. Because of that, I feel like this glass will get scratched later on. For one thing, it does attract a lot of fingerprints when you're holding up the phone and you've mistakenly pressed your fingerprint on that. You definitely want to clean that camera lens before you take any pictures. I was also worried that the camera might get scratched when you place it flat on a surface, but luckily the edges of that panel are raised well enough to prevent the camera glass from touching the surface when you lay it flat. I still think it's a bit of a strange material to use, and it's really bugging me. Let's move on to hardware. The Nokia Lumia 830 is powered by a quad-core 1.2 GHz Snapdragon 400 processor with an Adreno 305 graphics, 1 GB of RAM and 16 GB of internal memory, out of which only about 11 GB is available to use. There's also a micro SD card slot, as I mentioned earlier. This is the same processor that's used on the Lumia 630 and on budget phones like the Moto G and the new Moto G. All of these phones cost less than half of the price of the Lumia 830, so it is a bit of a strange decision that Nokia chose to go with this budget processor for this phone. Still, things are rather fast and fluid on the 830 and there's no slowdowns whatsoever when you're scrolling around the UI and opening up apps. Windows Phone is generally light on system resources, so it really doesn't make that much of a difference, even though this processor would likely not run as fast with Android running on top of it. The extra bit of RAM also means that you'll see less resuming screens with the 830, so multitasking also works much better, and even games run pretty well on the 830 unless they're very processor intensive, in which case you might see a couple dropped frames now and then. In terms of connectivity, there's LTE Cat 4 depending on where you're buying this phone from. There's 3G, HSDPA, Wi-Fi hotspot, DLNA support, Bluetooth 4.0, NFC and FM radio, and even GPS. Moving on to software, the Nokia Lumia 830 runs Windows Phone 8.1 Update 1 with the Lumia Denim update on top of that. I know that's a lot of words, but trust me, stay with me. I've already detailed out Windows Phone 8.1 before. It brings a lot of new stuff to the table with the notification center, which you can now use with toggles right at the top. This makes using a Windows Phone much easier than before. You can also now see actual battery percentage right over there. You can change the look of the live tiles with a background on them. And there's also Cortana, which is very useful, though I have a separate video on just that. Cortana is only available in the US officially and kind of the UK right now, so I'm not exactly sure whether I should talk about it. In case you are interested in knowing more about Cortana, you can just check out the video that I'm going to link to in the description below. Apart from that, Windows Phone 8.1 also bought separate media and volume controls, which you can control from just a toggle right over there. It comes in very handy. And there's also other new things like a new quiet hours, do not disturb feature. Windows Phone 8.1 also brings a nice new keyboard where you can swipe to type instead of typing one by one. It works really well, as you can see. In addition to Windows Phone 8.1, the Nokia Sign update also bought a couple new things of its own, with a new Nokia camera app, a new Nokia Storyteller app, and it also bought Dolby Surround Sound, which is built into the 830 as well. But the latest firmware that's available out of the box with the 830 is the Lumia Denim update. The Lumia Denim update brings Windows Phone 8.1 Update 1, which also has a couple new features like the ability to have folders on the start screen, which comes in very handy if you want a more organized start screen. It also brings a faster camera app, as well as new features like the rich capture mode, which brings auto HDR and dynamic flash. Dynamic flash is a really cool feature where you can take a picture both with flash and without flash, and then adjust a slider in between to get the best of both of those pictures in one picture. Unfortunately, the new Lumia camera app is not available yet to download, so I wasn't able to test that feature out on the Lumia 830 yet. Hopefully it should be released soon enough though. Apart from that, Microsoft has a whole bunch of things covered with their own Bing apps, such as Bing Travel, Bing Finance, Bing Translate, blah blah blah, and a whole bunch of Bing apps. There's a whole bunch of Nokia apps as well, such as Hero Maps, which has offline maps with navigation. There's a Lumia Selfie app, which lets you take very nice little selfies, and a whole bunch of other apps as well. Coming to multimedia, the 5-inch display means that watching videos on the 830 is a very pleasant experience with support for a whole variety of codecs and no slowdowns. While the Xbox Music app does a good enough job, Nokia Mix Radio is my favorite music streaming service on any platform so far. It brings you free music that you can stream right from your phone. It even studies the music that you have on your phone so that it can make a more personalized mix for you. And you can also download up to 4 mixes for offline listening. Listening to music via headphones is definitely a really awesome experience with the Lumia 830, though the speaker on the back does a good enough job as well. Coming to the camera, the Nokia Lumia 830 has a 10 megapixel camera at the back, but it isn't just any ordinary 10 megapixel camera. Oh no, this is a 10 megapixel PureView f2.2 camera with 6 lens-sized optics, a backside illuminated sensor, and it has optical image stabilization, which Nokia says is their slimmest OIS module so far. It can also record video at a full 1080p HD, and it uses Nokia's rich recording audio and Dolby Surround Sound as well. To get the camera of this quality at this price range is a pretty awesome deal. But again, what really makes the camera pop is the software. Like I said, the rich capture and dynamic flash features were not available because there was no new Lumia camera app on the A30 yet. So unfortunately I wasn't able to test out those two features, but in terms of camera quality otherwise, the Lumia A30 does a really good job. Of course the camera quality isn't as fantastic as the Lumia 930 or the Lumia 1020, which have bigger sensors. Low light pictures came out pretty nice. Of course there was a little bit of noise here and then, but all in all camera quality was actually really impressive. It's really hard to explain camera quality in a video, so if you really want to know about this, you should definitely go check out my blog post over on unleashedphones.com. I have a whole bunch of camera samples and video samples as well, so you can really get a feel of how good the Lumia A30's camera is. Speaking of which, the Lumia A30 records video at 1080p, which is pretty decent. The OIS comes in really handy when you're making videos. Videos look really smooth as you're panning around, and it's definitely appreciated. The OIS also comes in really handy when you're taking low light pictures, so they look less shaky. Again, like I said, you're definitely going to want to check out the camera samples post over on unleashedphones.com. Moving on to call quality. As you can expect from a phone that has 3 microphones, call quality is actually pretty decent. Callers on the other end of my phone calls could hear me very clear because the 3 microphones cancel out all of the ambient noises around me. Likewise, the earpiece is pretty loud and you can hear people just fine. The Lumia A30 also does a pretty good job of maintaining a network signal. Moving on to battery life, the Lumia A30 is powered by a 2200 mAh battery, which might not seem like much, but because the processor isn't as intense and the screen isn't as high resolution, that battery actually is pretty decent. Nokia officially rates the battery of the A30 at about 14 hours of talk time on 3G, 10 hours of continuous video playback, and 78 hours of music listening, or 22 days of standby time. In my usage, I was able to get a proper workday's worth of usage out of the Lumia A30. Now, this is on moderately heavy usage, so that's pretty impressive, but I would definitely recommend charging this phone at the end of every day. And like I mentioned earlier, the battery is removable, so you can always just buy another battery in case you want better battery life. Alright, so to conclude, not everything about the Lumia A30 is flagship material, but the important bits definitely are. The camera is better than anything else that you get in this price range. Performance is also pretty decent even though it runs Windows Phone on a comparatively cheaper processor. Audio quality is also really great, and build quality is really honestly fantastic. That being said, the Lumia A30 does have a lot of competition. It has to deal with the HTC Desire A16, which is a great phone that's almost as much value for money as the A30 is. And then there's the Nexus 5, which is kind of dated hardware but still has a better screen than the Lumia A30 does, though the camera isn't anywhere close. Basically, if you are looking for a mid-range Windows phone right now, there's no better phone than the Lumia A30, but your choice is going to have to be Android or Windows Phone in this case. So that's what I think of the Nokia Lumia A30, guys. It's a fantastic phone by itself, but there has a lot of competition in this price range. As always, there's more information over at the blog post at unleashedphones.com, but if you have any questions, do let me know right in the comment section below. And don't forget, if you like this video, maybe hit that like button, maybe subscribe, because that would be appreciated. And that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys.